Hello,
Hello, is this Vern Yip?
this is Vern speaking.
Hi, Vern. This is Ariane Belazaire. How are you?
Hey, I'm well. How are you doing?
Good. Is this still a good time to talk about your book?
It is. It is.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you again. I'm so glad that I had a chance to look at the book and have an advanced copy. I don't even know if you could possibly remember me, but I actually have had a chance to be in your home. I went to the Design Bloggers Conference 2 or 3 years ago, and I was picked
Oh yeah,
to have dinner
sure.
at your house when you were
Of
launching
course.
your fabric collection. So I've actually been in this house. I'm so excited. I was looking through it, and I was remembering all of the beautiful rooms that I walked through, and it's amazing to me that the book, it doesn't present itself as kind of staged rooms, but I kind of know for a fact that you live this way. So that's really cool. Feature, but but I did, before we started the questions, want to thank you. That was one of the highlights, has been one of the highlights for me forever. And so I just remember you were so gracious. Your family was adorable. You kind of rolled out the red carpet. So thank you for doing that. We all really appreciated
That's so
it.
wonderful. No, I'm
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you were able to come, and thank you for looking at the book and for helping me get the word out on it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to do that to help. So I guess the first thing is, for me, I love to collect design books because I'm always studying. This is the similarity between the two of us is that my parents are very strict about education. When I was growing up, I was on my track to be a lawyer, poli-sci major. You know, I thought I was going to be down that career path, and because my parents instilled the value of education, but also in kind of working hard and doing what you love, the fact that I was able to make the transition and have a second career in interior design, it was scary, but they gave me the confidence to step out on faith and do that. And so reading your introduction really spoke to me. And, you know, as much as I love a beautiful coffee table book or a beautiful photography of spaces, I actually love diving in and reading kind of what the designer and author has to say. And I love meaty books. So the first thing that struck me was that I turned the page into your introduction, and I just was so compelled to read it. And so really grateful that you were opening up yourself and telling people who you are and how you came to be the person you are and how you came to be the designer that you are. And you credit your mom with a lot of that. Yeah, no, I think that we miss that, especially, you know, for me, I feel like I've seen you on television for years, and, you know, I see your work and I love your work. And I think, you know, the outsider doesn't really think about the fact that it's a person and there's a journey that they have to take to get there, right? And so I really appreciated you telling us how you got there. I think that's a great way to set up, you know, kind of the book. So you mentioned that you didn't want this book to be a monument to you or your design. Is that one of the reasons you chose to write an introduction versus having like a forward written to you by, you know, written for you by another celebrity designer or mentor or someone? Is that why you took that approach?
You know, I think for me, I did want it to have a very personal approach, even though, you know, for years, you know, I've been on television for 16, 17 years now. And the thing is, even though, you know, people mostly know me from seeing me on television, I have seen through the years that when they see me, they always say to me, "Oh, I feel like I already know you." And the thing is, it's because I'm not playing a character on TV. I'm me. It's not like I'm an actor and I'm on a scripted series. You know, I'm me, and I'm doing what I love, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I've been in people's homes for a long time through their television screens. So I understand that comment that they feel like they already know me. But even though they feel like they already know me, they only know me to a certain point, and I'm so grateful that I've had so much support from such loyal fans throughout the years. I mean, a career in television that long is almost unheard of, and it's only possible because people support you. You know, they are interested in what you have to say and what you're doing. And so I'm really grateful, and I just really felt like, you know, I wanted this book to be really instructive, really helpful. I wanted it to be a great resource guide, but I also wanted it to be a personal connection from me to my supporters and my fans, you know, to give them some additional insight, not just, through the introduction,
Right.
which I did mean to be very personal, but also by sharing my personal homes, by letting people sort of peek into my life, and by, sharing my family with them, my
Yes.
kids, my dogs,
Right.
my husband. So I wanted
Yes.
to really kind of make the book both super instructive for anybody, whether you're a Vern fan or not. I wanted it to be an incredible resource guide. But for those who are fans, I also wanted it to be incredibly open and personal. And so hopefully I've achieved that.
I think you have. I think that, again, the introduction sets it up beautifully. And then as you turn the page, it's to me, I laughed as I read it because I thought, this is, of course, I don't know you, but I feel like, hey, I've had dinner with them, and I've watched TV, and so I get that whole feeling like they know you. But what I know about you, I should say, is that I think you are the perfect illustration of someone who could balance the analytical side with the creative, right? And I think that when people who are attracted to design start to look into it, they want to understand the science behind design. They're like, how did you arrive there? And I think the void that is that has been created in, just kind of every way that people are getting information, whether it's reading blogs or it's watching television or, however they're getting their design inspiration, I feel like there's been this gap between how to systematically get there and how you arrive at a successfully designed space. And so, as I kind of think of the television shows that are really popular, it seems that design is done kind of, just very gut-driven, and we'll make this decision, next time or later, versus what we know in the real world as we work on projects is it's a layered approach, and there's always a starting point, and every decision is a hinge point for something else. So this book I appreciate because I think as you kind of describe who your ideal reader is and what you wanted to provide for them, it is the filler for that gap because it literally goes from here are the the numbers. My husband, who's an engineer, would love that because he needs definitive answers. And so this is very, very purposeful in the way it's laid out. And then once you understand the numbers, then you start to bring in the creative and the personality. So as I hear you say what you wanted to have your reader take from it, whether they know Vern Yip or not, I feel like you've been able to do that with the way that this book is laid out.
Well, I really appreciate that. I'm grateful that you felt that way, and that certainly was the purpose for it to, demystify a lot of what scares people about design. If you're not an interior designer, you don't really get why certain decisions are made, and you sort of feel like it's magical and somebody just kind of feels their way into putting a room together. But there's a lot of it that is based on the standardization of our world, meaning, does it matter if you're your size or my size, or you're an NBA basketball player, or you're an Olympic gymnast, or what? They make furniture pretty much in standard sizes.
That's right.
A dining room table is always going to be 29 to 31 inches in height. A dining room chair is always going to be 19 inches to the seat. And, unless you have everything customized to your specific size, furniture is standardized. And when furniture is standardized in that manner, what that then telegraphs into are standardized rules in terms of how pieces relate to each other so that you can comfortably utilize a room, maneuver around pieces, and, be able to functionally live your life in this space. So for me, once you kind of accept that, in fact, there is a lot of standardization that happens in our world and in our lives with furniture, and that then translates to design rules. Once you sort of understand that and accept that, what that then does for me, as a designer, is it then frees you up to then make aesthetic choices that reflect who you are. It takes some of the terror and some of the fright away from starting the design process if you're not somebody who feels secure in that world. It gives you those concrete rules that then begins to help illustrate how things make sense. And then you can then focus on the things that you love from an aesthetic standpoint, because I always say, a room has to come together in two ways. It has to be that confluence of function and aesthetics. Without one or the other, a room really is a failure. It can be a incredibly functional room, but if it's not aesthetically pleasing to you, as the person who's inhabiting it, then it's a failure. Or if it's a really beautiful room to you and aesthetic reflects who you are, but it doesn't really function to serve you in your life, then it's also a failure. So this book really does attempt to kind of empower people by giving them those concrete rules that they can then build their rooms around, and then free them to sort of think about who they are and what makes them happy to then implement that into their space.
Right, which is so important. I remember in your introduction you did use, I think in fact you even said, learning these time-tested principles will be liberating for you, and it's really true. So I guess one of the things that a reader could take from this is, if you don't know those dimensions off the top of your head, this is a resource that you could, it's pretty good size. I could fit this in my handbag. I have a pretty big handbag. But you can take this around as your resource.
Yes,
and you can actually use it to shop. Yes, I love the size of it. It's perfect. It's not too small. It's not too big. It's something that you can slip into a handbag, or a bag where you carry materials and samples and paint chips or whatever you want if you're shopping, and you could flip through it and literally go, okay, this is the size nightstand that I need. This is the size dining table I need based on my room and the dimensions. And one of the things that I think a reader could take from that is, as you lean into those principles that are always going to be there because they've been time tested, then that does free you to say, now that I know the principles, I actually have been able to eliminate 100 of the 110 dining room table options before me, because now I know that there are 10 that will work for me, and that I can take a deep breath, and now it's not so scary. I'm not overwhelmed, because now I know I'm looking for a specific thing based on the size, and then I'm going to choose from the 10 which one meets my aesthetic or matches who I am and what I'm trying to communicate. So
I think that's
exactly
brilliant. Right. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for recognizing that. It is, in addition to dimensions and measurements, other things that are incorporated in that book are, like the most important questions to ask when you're buying a piece of upholstered furniture, or the most important questions to ask when you're buying, something that's made out of wood, like a case good piece. And the thing is, people don't want to memorize those things, nor should they, which is why I encourage them in the book, take this book with you. As you said, the size is not an accident. The size, we worked on to make it so that you could toss it into your bag and you could bring it with you to the store, so that you could ask a salesperson when you're ready to buy a sofa, is this a hardwood frame or a softwood frame? Right. Does it have a spring bed? Like all the things that you don't necessarily want to memorize, or you don't really want to know. You just want to know that it has these things, because we know that means it's a quality piece. You just take the book with you and you can just run down the list. And that's why, in the very back of the book, part 3 of the book is cheat sheets. And cheat sheets takes everything from part 1. Part 2 is the photo tour, but part 1 is where all the rules are. And it boils down all the most important parts of part 1 into these lists at the back that are cheat sheets, where, when you are running about and you are shopping, you can have all of that stuff there. Right. And then the second thing that you said that I think is really, clever, and I'm so glad that you said it, you were mentioning if you have 110 dining room options, and you now know 100 of them are eliminated because only 10 will work for you. It does help significantly, but that's the point. The point is that, if you kind of plan your room out, it can narrow it down for you very quickly, because what happens is, I think a lot of people just kind of go with into a store blindly, just kind of hoping it all works out, and they buy the things that they love, like they think, are nice, or they buy the things that are on sale, or that they think are a good value or comfortable or whatever. And then those things come home, and oftentimes they don't quite work out size-wise, or they don't quite work out from a quality standpoint. Like that sofa you thought was so beautiful and comfortable and so well priced. Well, it doesn't have high density foam. So now after sitting in your favorite spot for a month, we can all see where you've been sitting because that cushion isn't bouncing back. So it's designed to help you eliminate a lot of the things that are out there so that you can then focus on the things that are right for you, because you might find a perfectly beautiful coffee table that is well made, that's a huge bargain, but at the end of the day, is it a bargain if it's not the right size for your sofa or for your space? The answer is no. Yes, you've saved a lot of money off of the retail price, but the money that you've sunk into it now is sunk into something that's not quite right for your home and your space, and that ultimately is a waste of money. So this is designed to kind of help you weed through all of that and just to kind of let you focus on the things that really will work for you, because I don't care how much money you have. You can make $5,000 a year or you can make $5 million a year. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me, and what matters to those people, to everybody, is that they spend their money wisely. Trust me, everybody on every level of budget and in every level of home still wants to spend their money wisely. There are very few people these days, even multimillionaires, who just don't care, and they don't they're just writing checks left and right. Those days are kind of gone, and now everybody wants to make sure that they're spending money wisely and they're getting a good value and they know what they're doing. And so, everybody's interested in making the right choices the first time around, because when you make the choices correctly the first time around, you end up saving money long term.
You save money on buying the right piece once, and one that will last, and also on your time. People have more money than time, and we know that the money is finite. So when you think about it, time is so precious to them, and the fact that they may spend 4 hours in a furniture store spinning their wheels because they don't know where to go or what direction to take, they are not sure what they're looking for, and the salesperson is trying their best to help them. The time that's saved by going in and having a plan, taking the time to make a floor plan, doing all of your measurements, taking this book as a resource in with you, that is huge, because if that person multiplies what they make in an hour times the 4 hours they would spend in the furniture store, that is the money they could have spent on a better piece of furniture instead of bargain shopping and spinning their wheels. So, I think, I can't say enough how much I love that this is not only very, very, very practical in that it gives you details, the questions that you didn't even know you should be asking yourself, but I also love that you show the application. So, I've read many books where it's beautiful. It's either lots of photos with captions, hey, we were inspired by, Italian villa, and this is how we, did this. So it's all about that kind of the creative and the inspiration, but really light on how they translated that inspiration to applying it in that space in very fine details. Or it's the opposite. It's lots and lots and lots of words, few pictures where you're kind of like, okay, I understand what you're describing, but I wish I could see that concept in action, where I feel like this book does both brilliantly. It's balanced in its meat, and it's balanced in beautiful visual photography and inspiration.
So
you can
love
see it.
Thank you. Thank you. That's exactly what I was aiming for, because I did feel exactly as you said, that lots of books had lots of information, but it was oftentimes buried in paragraphs and it was hard to access. And so I wanted this information to not only be in one place, but I also wanted it bullet pointed so that it's just easy, like bullet pointed, get to the point, and, organize the book so that it's easy to go through. For the most part, I wanted to have pictures on the left, bullet points on the right. Now, I fought hard to make it that way, and it didn't always work out that way because of text, but I would say 80 to 85% of the time we tried to make it that way, and it worked out. The other part is that, I'm like you. I love design books. I have a ton of them, and I love a beautiful picture book like The Next Person. I find them beautiful to go through, relaxing. Sometimes you just want to escape and you're not really looking for information. You're looking for inspiration. You just want to see something. And I love that too. But but I wanted the book to be balanced. And so part 2 of the book shows you how all those rules from part 1 coalesce into 3 very different homes. And that is that part of the book where you can relax and you can just kind of go through and enjoy the beautiful photography and see, get a sneak peek into my home. But it's also to show you that these 3 homes, one's a historic Atlanta home that's, almost 7,000 square feet. One's a tight New York apartment that's only 800 square feet or less. And then one's an average size American home. This one just happens to be at the beach, but, 2,700 square feet. So it's meant to not only show you my life and the life of my family and give you a behind-the-scenes tour, but also to show you that no matter what kind of home you have, no matter what size of home you have, no matter what style you have, those rules apply because, everything still is designed around the average human body. And it will be that way for a long time until something drastically happens and we all become like 10 feet tall or whatever.
Right.
But
right.
I mean, it's happened over time. Like, if you go back hundreds of years ago, to the beginning of our country, you look at these homes that were built in Jamestown and Williamsburg, and the doors are like 5 feet tall because people were like, they were a lot shorter back then. Everything was more diminutive.
Right.
But as
and even the scale of furniture, of course.
Yes. As everything was smaller back then because people were smaller, but it takes a long time. And so the rules we have in place today reflect the average human size, couches, dining room tables, all of that, rooms in general, they're all built around the average human size because when we say pictures should be hung 60 inches from finished floor to the center unless they're over a headboard or a mantle, people ask why 60 inches? Well, 60 inches is meant to be about eye level.
That's right.
And people think, well, everybody's eye level is different, which is so true. But are you going to rehang the picture for each person that comes into the house?
Right.
No, you're going to hang it at an average eye level height so that the vast majority of people who come into your house are seeing that artwork at the right level. Yes, if you have a basketball player come into your house, it's probably not going to be eye level for them. Or if you have a horse jockey come into the house, it's probably not going to be eye level for them. But what we try and do is we try and, as a society, to do things for the vast majority so that we can, hang something and then leave it hung.
No, it's perfect, and those are the types of things that people don't realize. I will say one of the things that was striking to me. So when I won the chance to be one of, I think it was 20 of us that got to go to your house and have dinner, we didn't know where we were going. We just kind of had to get on a bus and like start riding, and finally they made the announcement, hey, we get to go to Vern home to have dinner. And we walked into your house, and even at night, what I could notice was the things that we intuitively either know are right or know are wrong. There was nothing I could pick out of your home that I said, that kind of sticks out to me, or why did he do that? It just all kind of blended, and it blended in a way that I could tell based on the body language of all of us and you and your husband and your kids. It was so comfortable. It was like the house just kind of gave you a big hug. And as we moved through each room, because you were so nice, you gave a tour. You're like, hey, as long as it's not a closed door or a closet, you can go through it. That to me was very telling because it wasn't that your house was staged for that dinner. It was literally the way you lived. And your kids, I have 2 kids, and trust me, there are places in my house that they know. No, when company comes, that door stays closed. And my kids, when you watch my kids, because of the way that I've kind of designed my home, there are places that you can tell they never sit in. There are rooms that they never use because that's just, mommy's dressed up room. As a designer, you kind of have to have the room. If people come over, okay, yes, this is my house, right? But you can tell where they live because they hop on the furniture and they lay out and they're just very comfortable. And notice your kids were so cute because they felt very comfortable in the house. And even when they let us see their rooms, they're like, this is my bed, and I got to do this, and I got to pick that, and just it all made so much sense visually, and it was very functional. So, I just kind of think back to that, and I look through this book, and I know for sure that many times we stage, as a designer, when we are photographing a project, we will stage things and kind of move things this way or that way for the photo, clearly, because you want to capture the essence of what you were doing as you design that space. But I will tell you, having walked through your home, maybe for the camera angles you might have had, I don't know. I don't know if you have to tweak anything, but I can tell you these rooms look like what I walked through. The entry, I remember walking in and seeing that, and it's just, I think that that's a testament to the fact that this book is instructive, but it's not do as I say, not as I do. It's actually, you live this, you walk this, and most people who haven't been in your home may not know that, but I would like the readers of the blog and the write-up that I do to know that you actually walk the walk. And so they can trust you when they read that you know what you're talking about and that your advice is sound.
Thank you. Well, you have a unique perspective because most people haven't been to my house. And
right.
I can tell you it's not like I'm never scrambling. I'm never intimidated to have company just pop over because it's not because, I am that I am like rigid about my house to be a certain way. It's because I grew up in a beautiful home, and it really impacted my life. It really impacted my appreciation of the visual things. It made me very visually sensitive, and I want to come home and have it be the best place that, on the planet. I want it to fit me more than any other place. I want my family to feel that way when they walk through the door. I want every person on the planet to be able to walk through their door and say, this is where I want to be, more so than any five-star resort, more so than any place on the planet. And for me, that is having, the house be very pulled together, but also very approachable. And there isn't a room that is off limits to my kids. They can go to any room, and they know that, and they know what they can touch, and they know what they just need to look at, and they know what they can touch gently. And, I love that compliment, and I always love hearing it, and I appreciate you saying it, that, oh, your home is so beautiful. I love how it's just so warm. It's so inviting. And that for me is how I want to feel when I come home. I want it to be beautiful. I want it to be pulled together, but do I want to feel like I'm in a museum?
Right.
No, I don't want to feel like I'm in a museum. I want to feel like I can pull out a book and sit down anywhere and read it. Or, I want to feel comfortable. I want to feel like, I'm being invited. Now, at the same time, I very much encourage people to do that for themselves, meaning what is comfortable and what makes me happy isn't necessarily going to be what's comfortable for you and what makes you happy or the next person. So I think ultimately that's what this book is trying to say and trying to achieve, is saying, you don't have to make your house look like mine. That's not the point.
Right.
The point is that this is my home, and it's different when people look at a project of mine versus looking at my personal homes. Because when people look at a project of mine, I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for somebody else. So the stakes are different, meaning I want to make sure that they're pleased and they're happy, and it's through that lens. But when I'm doing it for me, when I'm doing it for my family, I really don't care if anybody looks at it and says, this is not my taste, or I don't like this, or whatever. I think everybody has that right to say that. And it doesn't impact me because I didn't do it for anybody else. I did it for me. I did it for my family. And that's what I want everybody to do. I want people to do it for themselves.
I think that's such a great point, because these days, especially as I interact with clients, or even, hearing friends talk, or just associates talk, there's this need to blend. What's on? I get texts all the time. What's on trend? I'm picking a new sofa. What's trending right now? And I'm like, it's not about the trend. It's about what's timeless to you. And so I think this kind of gives. I didn't put it together necessarily before you said that, but I'm so glad that you showed 3 different houses in 3 different styles, because you showed how the same principles apply across all three. And intuitively, I think people will get, or I hope that they get, that means you can create a space that's perfect for you and that will always be timeless to you, regardless of when trends come and go, because at the end of the day, it's functional, it's beautiful to you, it meets your need, and it helps tell the story of you. It helps tell your story.
Yes.
You describe your style as kind of having, I had to write it down because it's so clear, attention to detail married with precise, clean line interiors balanced with a sense of warmth. Okay, that is like so defined and specific, yet it's true. Like I can see it. If I had to look at a picture of your space, all of those things make sense to me. And so what I think this book will encourage people to do is lean into those time-tested principles, learn them, or take your book around if you need a cheat sheet. But then once you've identified kind of the rules, quote unquote, for the space, then tune into yourself to find out what your design statement is. What is your, how would you describe what your statement is, and get as specific as you can, and then that allows you to tell your story visually as your space is laid out. So, I can't say enough about how happy I am for you to have done this and how beautiful. I know I can only imagine how much work it took to put this together, but I think it is so well done, and I'm grateful that you took the time to do it, because I think this is a very needed resource.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And I feel like, more so than any other interview that I've done, I feel like you have a unique perspective into me, because you have been in the space, you have been in my home, and you have had time. We've had time before to kind of chat, and so you really understand and get my point of view, and I appreciate that very much. I'm grateful that that you're taking the time out of your day to speak to me about it, and I'm grateful for all your words of encouragement and support. It has been a real passion project for me, and something I've really wanted to put out for a long time, and so I'm really thrilled to finally be able to share it with folks, and I hope it's well received.
I think it will be. You mentioned it's been a passion project for a while. Was it kind of something that you always thought I'll work toward it, or was there one specific event that was like, okay, now is the time I have to do it? I know I've wanted to do it, but now is the time.
No, I think for me it really coalesced. Just it's funny, I've said this in an interview before, but I've been doing television for so long, and I've been in the public eye for so long, that people feel very, very comfortable coming up to me in the street and asking me questions. And I noticed over time that they were asking the same kinds of questions over and over again, which said to me, even though that information may be out there, people still don't get it, and they still don't know, and it's not being presented in an accessible way. And I think that the second thing is really, being a parent and oftentimes being in the carpool lane. I found carpool is so crazy for me, and you have to get into the carpool lane so early, and you just you have like 30 minutes to 45 minutes to just sit there. And I thought, I need something that I can just pick up, and I want to learn something, and I need something that I can just like pick up and go to any page and just sort of like have 2 or 3 nuggets that I take away with me, instead of just being on my phone mindlessly and checking my email again,
and
looking at social media again. I wanted something just like that I didn't have to read from beginning to end, but like I could pick up any random page and be like, oh, bathrooms. I never knew that's where toilet paper roll holder is supposed to be hung, or just having those little bits of nuggets where you can put it down and then you can pick it up later, or you don't have to pick it up later. And I always loved designing things that are useful, meaning I didn't want to just put out a book with my name on it that was just a showcase for my projects. I wanted to do something that hadn't been done before, and that was going to be useful. I wanted it to be a beautiful coffee table book that anybody would be proud to have out. But at the same time, I didn't want it to be like a dust catcher. I wanted people to actually say, oh, I know it's there and it's beautiful to look at, but I also know that I can go back to it if I need to know something. Absolutely. So for me, that that was sort of the magic point where I was like, oh, I see how it's supposed to all come together now. And it was a lot of work. It was very, very hard to put together, but at the same time, it wasn't as hard as it could have been because I had a very clear vision in my mind of how it was supposed to look and how it was supposed to come together. So I was very lucky to have like a publisher on board who shared my vision and understood.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm grateful. And as far as timing, what I will tell you is I live in Louisiana. I actually live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which means a month ago we had floodwaters. You know, we got flooding.
I know, it's been terrible.
It is terrible. It is heartbreaking to drive down and see street after street of people's homes gutted. And so what I've made a commitment to do, you know, there's so much, as someone whose home was protected, I feel almost like a survivor's guilt, like, why was my home? Because when I tell you literally all the houses around our neighborhood were underwater and our neighborhood was fine. And so that it's heartbreaking.
Gosh,
and
so
I'm like,
lucky.
how do I help? How do I help? And so I've been telling my husband, you know, I think that the immediate needs of food and shelter and, you know, just kind of that basic, what people need at their most basic core, there are a lot of people taken care of. But I think as an industry, we have an opportunity to realize people lost their homes, which is their haven, their sanctuary, their, you know, like you said, the state that most people, their favorite place to be. And so what I'm going to commit to do is I'm gifting this book, because there are people who call me every day and they never had a designer. They don't have the money for a designer. You know, they're not in the luxury designer market. They just need to get back into their house. Like their house is gutted and they're renovating it. Like, where do I start? And so what I'm going to do, because this book is so beautifully laid out but so practical, is that is my gift to them. I'm going to buy several copies of the book and I'm giving it out. No, and because I think that the comfort this book will provide them will do wonders for their mental state right now. And so that is my thank you to you. That's my thank you to you for the timing, because I wouldn't have thought of that, you know, 2 months ago. I would have thought, oh, this is a nice book. It's in my library and I'm going to write about it, and people want to get it, they should. But you know, I think that's part of what I am going to do to help people know where to start, how to put one foot in front of the other as they have to buy all new furniture and they have to figure out what to put on, you know, like you said, the bathrooms and the kitchen, the things that they had but weren't maybe their favorite. It's not like they're renovating their homes by choice. It's because they've been forced to do it. So I'm grateful, again, to you for taking the time to do that. And I'm actually really glad that we had a chance to do this phone call, because to hear you say what you hope the book would be, and to have me be able to share with you what my impressions were and have them kind of align, I think that's a great thing.
Well, so. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you're doing to give back to your community. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, I think you're exactly right. You know, a lot of people are paying attention to those immediate needs of like clothing and food and just putting a roof over somebody's head. But ultimately, you know, people lost exactly as you stated, their sanctuaries, and to be able to kind of help them get that back is special. And I'm so grateful that you're in that area. You're in that area for a reason, and your house is protected for a reason. And I love that you've got those thoughts in your head. So thank you for your time today too, and thank you for helping to promote the book. I really appreciate it.
I'm happy to do it.